Good morning. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. We've got a little different show today. I think kind of in honor of 4th of July. You know, there's a common bond that all of us share being Americans. And I have somebody in front of me that is promoting, what is it? Gamefest?
Good family times.
That's a great way to put that. Gamefest.
It's a game.
Here in Clovis. And I think that games actually provide some of the social fabric. Different generations can connect. Kids learn discipline. Kids learn rules. And they learn how to operate within those rules. So tell me a little bit about your event. What's happening? Well, first of all, when is it? Where is it?
Downtown Clovis. It starts on Friday at noon, and it goes till Sunday night. And the Vietnam Veterans of America are hosting it. They're into gaming themselves, and then I'll talk a little bit about what type of games are there. There's a website called vetgamefest.org. If you go there, it's got all the details on how to register, or you can just show up at downtown Clovis at the Vet Center, and we'll get you in. Once you're in, we'll show you all the different things you can do while you're there. It's a fundraiser. They're going to make money.
Well, that's all right.
And that's okay. And they're going to put it back into scholarships for students, support all the different veteran programs they do. These Vietnam veteran guys, they're a big gaming generation themselves. They grew up post-World War II playing Milton Bradley and Parker Brothers games, and then they branched out into these huge-scale miniature campaigns.
So we're not talking video games.
No. It's for them. It's all about the social interaction. There won't be anything plugged in the whole weekend.
Okay, I want to point out, because people are listening at different times. This actually means July 7th,
8th and 9th. Yes,
8th and 9th, 2023.
It is.
Just in case somebody in the future is like, well, I want to go.
I want to go. It's tomorrow, which is the Friday after the 4th of July, and Saturday and the Sunday.
So this is a family-friendly event?
Oh, my
God. Just kids?
I'm bringing some of my students. They're bringing their families, members, their friends. I've got grandmas coming. I've got little kids coming, and they're all going to be. This place will cater to a lot of different types of games.
Cool. That sounds like it's going to be a fun event.
Oh, it's going to be great. They when you look at something to do in Fresno and Clovis on a weekend, that's not something you would normally see. If you want to go to a gaming convention, you usually have to go to L.A. or Bay or Vegas. The big ones are back east.
Well, it's a beautiful facility, good air conditioning. Hint, folks. For how much is it for a ticket?
If you're a family of four, they really discount it. So if you take a family of four, 50 divided by 4, about $12 each. If you're a family of 4,
well, that's more than reasonable.
If you come solo and want to stay all weekend, then we're going to hit you up for 40. But
well, that's a 3-day ticket.
I know
you could get your share of air conditioning and learn how to play games.
And look at the hours too, Eric. It's crazy. It's like 8 to 10 hours on Friday, over 12 hours on Saturday, and about 9 to 10 hours on Sunday. So I don't know.
So somebody could just come hang out and learn all about games and have some fellowship.
They can come find me, and they can pull any. We have a game library that's been donated by Crazy Squirrel, a local game store, and I can't wait to walk into the library and just, I've never played that. Let me pull that off and try to teach myself. But there's my students and I can teach you 50 different games.
So you're both a student or both a teacher and a veteran.
A teacher and a vet. And
now, why are you bringing your kids? What is the benefit as a teacher from your perspective?
For them, community service. So they're first and foremost, they're there to support the Vietnam Veterans of America, our host. We heard about these. Well, obviously, my students know a lot about the Vietnam War. And they took an interest in the Vietnam Veterans of America specifically because that organization took an interest in the local high schools. They offer scholarships and awards. They give medals and ribbons out for outstanding students. And when I got to know the folks, and the local chapter here is amazing, they said, hey, we want to run this big miniature convention. Would you guys be able to help in our canteen? That's their little snack area. Mm-hmm. So we did this last year with them, and it was a lot smaller scale last year. And the kids had so much fun. They said, hey, can we come next year? We'll still help run the cantina, but can we play the games too?
Wow, that says a lot.
The VVAs, sure. In fact, so now we're running our own tournament on Saturday. So if anybody's listening that wants to actually come and compete try to win a trophy, Ace Trophy in downtown Clovis. We've ordered up 7 really nice trophies. So come win a trophy.
Only 7? No participation trophies?
No, you got to win, man.
Good. See, that's one of the things that I think is important is there's a value, and frankly, on a lot of games and things I did as in school, I lost a lot. The value is that it gave me motivation to do better.
My students, they learn a lot from failure, and when you mess up and you make a mistake, it's how you bounce back from that failure, more than just the constant participation points you get for just showing up. You know, it's about performing well when you do.
So it's about that builds character.
It builds
what
character.
You do when you fail, when the chips are down, defines really who you are. It's when things are rolling, it's easy.
This generation, because I teach 14 to 18-year-olds, and we're into gaming a lot now. They've discovered Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if you're probably familiar because it's been around for about 40 years now. There's a movie and there's this whole culture. They're not super crazy about it. They start with Uno and Monopoly. Those seem to be the games they all like, and they're pretty good with the rules. Right? Maybe not like our generation where we would pull the handbook out first. You know, whenever you buy something off the shelf, if you watch the kids today, man, they don't even look at the directions. They sort of instinctively put stuff together, which is kind of amazing. I like to read directions. I like to read the rules. But from working with them in this hobby, they're so good now at learning the rules. They teach it back to me and remind me of a rule if I try to, take a shortcut. No.
That's
so
funny.
They like rules, and then it keeps them, kind of. You got to lawyer up in these games a little bit, kind of because you can't do that. And some games are like that we play are actually sort of forgiving and creative. Dungeons and Dragons certainly is. You can bend all the rules you want in that game. But yeah, these kids know the parameters. There was a good example of played this game called Rail Baron, and it's like Monopoly, but you have choice. You know, Monopoly, you roll the dice. You got to land on that property and pay that person.
Right.
But Rail Baron, you can actually go on different railroads, and all right, your railroad could use a little money. I'm gonna give you some business. Anyways, so it was one of my students' turns, and the Pennsylvania Railroad was available, and she was going to buy it, and that's the best railroad to buy in the Northeast. And one of the other students at the table said, "No, don't buy that one. I was going to buy that one." And so she said, "Oh, okay, I won't buy it." And she went and bought another one. And then for the rest of the game, she kept rolling the Northeast as a region, which meant she had to keep going up there and paying fines to all the other ones that owned those railroads. So that's kind of a tough lesson. She didn't win.
So she chose to be nice.
She chose to be nice, and she got priced out of really, and it's a luck factor too. So it was not her day to actually have to roll that region so much. But if she had bought that Pennsylvania Railroad, she would have been rolling in the money. And so the next time we played again, anybody say, "Hey," she says, "I'm buying it." So it's nice to see them get a little competitive fire and try to win.
How does the fact that they're involved in gaming affect their schoolwork?
Oh, that's amazing. So that's a good point. I tell them if they join our club, that's a club within an organization. If they join, there's no GPA requirement. So I will take a kid in that's got straight Fs. And once they're in, it's amazing when you're around kids that do this. That's a great point. I can say it's anecdotal that almost all of them grades improve to 1 or 2 points on the GPA scale.
That's huge. So
it's huge.
It kind of, you got them involved in something, it changed the culture, and because of the change in culture, they became a more motivated kid. Is that fair?
It's fair. The good thing is they go home to their families instead of. And video games are cool. My kids play them, but they also play these. I don't do video games because I really like the social interaction of playing cards and playing dice games and rolling and things like that. So these kids go home and they play with their family members, and
that's cool.
They unite. I don't know. Especially during COVID. Have you been into like a Barnes and Noble and we walk in there and it's like, wait, wasn't this a bookstore? It looks like it's a board game store now.
I have not been in since COVID.
The puzzle. Remember puzzles? Mm-hmm. Somebody maybe 20 or 30 years ago said, no one does jigsaw puzzles anymore.
No, I always did.
You did, and then did you know during COVID that the companies that made puzzles actually ran out of them? There was such a run on puzzles because it was a family fun activity. What else could you do during COVID? So puzzles are back. And I was in the store the other day, and man, it's like I cannot believe all the wall space dedicated to puzzles. Somebody's working them, and then the board game hobby's taken off too, especially since COVID. I just based on the sales. All the local, there's like 5 local hobby shops here in town that all cater. If I can just say who they are,
Absolutely.
Crazy Squirrel. They're one of our major sponsors for Gamefest. They're so generous. You go in that store, and there's always people. They're gaming, they're buying stuff. Enters Games, Legends Comics and Games, Beer from Meeples. They're all helping us out. Of course, the Clovis Veterans Memorial District is offering up the space. Super generous. And there's a company called GMT Games. I didn't know they were out of Hanford. I'd always heard of them. They do these Napoleonic, ancient, old school war. I remember Stratego when you were a kid.
Yes, I do.
A lot of that moving pieces, and so it's great to see a local company donate games and prizes for the thing.
Well, that's really cool. Why, or what would be your best pitch? Why would somebody want to bring their kid for this?
To bond, I think the main thing that the gaming offers is a chance to cross generations within your family. Maybe you and your little brother don't get along too well. Maybe he's good at sports. Maybe you're not. But it just seems at the end of the day, you can always kind of agree to, all right, let's play this game. I might have a chance to beat you at this. I played with my older brothers and sisters, and they kicked my butt all the time. I would play my brother in Clue. Remember that game when you were a kid, Clue? And then eventually my brother taught me the strategy of how to win at Clue. He let it slip. Like, why did he beat me for Clue for about 8 years? When he taught me that, it was like the key to the kingdom. It's like, thanks, bro. And so then I could still beat him in Clue because he taught me the strategy. It's just fun. If you come out, first off, you don't have to be that super social. Like, the gaming thing is you can play with 2 people. I mean, you don't.
I know, but how social is this thing here?
I know.
This
more than
that's
one.
That's in everybody's hand. That's
one.
entertainment for one.
One.
Yeah.
This is 2 and above. So, anyways, there's big tournaments. I think it's visually very fun if they come this weekend to see all the different miniature setups. They have something called Star. There's a bunch of miniatures. The miniatures are just amazing. The folks that set up these, they're from gaming clubs from like the Bay, and they're from Modesto, up and down the valley.
So these are largely war games, though.
But Star Wars Legions. Yeah,
So,
dwarves versus orcs. There's definitely some or more fantasy science fiction element. The Star Wars one is probably the most popular. So they'll have 30 dudes, moving these different Star Wars creatures and vehicles around a battlefield with a pretty simple resolution for combat system. Those are fun to watch. But then after a while, you'll see me over playing cards with anybody that wants to sit down and learn. 50 to 70 different games I can teach them, and my students can teach it. So yeah, just come be social. Come help the Vietnam veterans of America. Raise a little money. Do something different on a weekend. And you mentioned air conditioning.
And air conditioning. So it's like you can go be comfortable for that number of hours. That's relatively inexpensive.
And Eric, I think we did this last year, and it was in the hundreds. It's only going to be 91-ish this weekend. So it's still hot enough to get out of the
It's still hot enough, yes.
Yeah. So that'd be great if you can send some folks our way. That'd be great. Just walk into the veterans. We've got the whole building, thanks to Lorenzo. And
so that's the Veterans Memorial Hall.
Yes, sir. The Old Town Clovis. Most of the students will be from Fresno. Some from Clovis.
Now you have a snack booth, so they don't have to leave all the time. Though there are plenty of local restaurants.
Yes, sir. Old Town's always fun, and it's a 1 block walk. And it's a really good restaurant.
Absolutely.
So, anyways, that's Gamefest 2023, and we'd love all the support we can get.
So, what's your favorite game?
The oldest game is backgammon. It goes back 3,000 years.
I didn't know it was that old.
Yeah, it's huge. And then the game Go, which is little black and white.
Oh, I've played Go a lot.
Have you? That's 2,000 years old. And then chess. A lot of people think chess is ancient, but chess actually kind of came around the 1400s. It's 500 years old.
So all of those are available.
All of those,
and there'll be somebody that can teach you how to play the game.
Yep. And the deck of cards was invented about the time of chess, and the deck of cards as we know it, with the 52 cards with the different suits based on the French royalty, actually. And so cards are what I grew up playing with my grandmother and her sisters, my great aunts, and that really got me into the hobby. Of course, every Christmas you'd get those 3 catalogs: the J.C. Penney, Sears, and Montgomery Ward's catalog. And my folks said, you can get Santa might bring you 1 toy and 1 game. So I'd make a really smart choice on the game. And it was, I started with Monopoly, and then I graduated to Avalon Hill games, which are way more intense. And the miniatures, I've never really gone down that avenue because I'm not that artistic. But the miniatures things, a lot of them, they like the paint.
So they
Collect.
customize their
Yes,
own
sir.
figures.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they're big on that. And then you have this sense of ownership of your game. So it's pretty cool. They call it a niche hobby, that specific war games. But if anybody comes this weekend, it's just fun. Hopefully, we'll get some folks into the hobby, and they're gonna get some people out and socialize with their families.
Here's something kind of interesting. Do you realize that when cards first came out, they did not have the number?
I did not know that, Eric.
Yes, they had less. They just had whatever royalty, and then it'd be a heart, and there'd be, if it was the one card, there'd be one heart.
One heart. So you had to add.
Yes, so you actually had to work. They've simplified life in so many ways.
Games have gotten less long. I don't know. Did you ever play Risk when you were a kid?
Not very much.
Risk. And Monopoly, if you play it right, you could go on for days.
Yes.
I
stayed up for the first time ever as a kid. I passed midnight because I am a morning person. That's how I'm wired in a game of Monopoly.
Well, I learned this a little bit when we were stationed in Germany for a little while. And when Germans show up at your house, Americans will show up with a bottle of wine or flowers. Germans will bring a game, and they'll give you the game. And then if you play it that night during their visit, that's fine. If not, it's just they're really into games. So they've sort of made games a lot less lengthy, and it's good for attention spans. Like I don't think I can play Risk anymore because it just goes so long. Yeah. These newer games, the kind they sell in Crazy Squirrel and these other places, are really shorter, and they're a lot more fun and intense. And like we talked about with the kids, it's different paths to victory, a lot of resource management, this decision making. That's what I love about games. Like I can watch TV, I can watch movies, I can read fiction, and sort of immerse myself in these worlds. But I like the piece of deciding, decision making, and that's what games do for you. You're deciding.
Yeah,
you're acting.
See, I don't play games very often anymore. Occasionally, I'll go to a family event, and that happens. But
what do they drag out? Like, give me an example.
On my mom's side, it's always Scrabble.
Scrabble's awesome, though. That's one of the best-selling games of all time.
Absolutely.
What's your tiebreaker? Do you pull a certain dictionary out that decides you have house rules on like which words can?
Grandma decides.
That's
Grandma's 91. Grandma decides.
That's right.
And she wins even at 91 quite frequently.
That sounds like my grandmother. She was a bridge master. She taught me the game of hearts. She always tried to teach me bridge, but my little brain didn't want to go there. But she taught hearts, and that could get pretty cutthroat. And nothing like your grandmother just dumping the queen of spades on you, and you're like, Anna, that's 13 points against me. Sorry about that. You learn.
Yeah. Well, I had one grandma that was absolutely a bridge player. Won most of the time. So I have kind of a funny story. So they'd always give away this prize. And the prize was always in the center of the table. It's usually a floral arrangement from her garden. She had amazing flowers. So one year I found these plastic flowers that have fruit in the display. Mm. And there's faces on all of them. So there's these weird, goofy things. And while she was getting ready for bridge, I switched out the prizes and then I left. So here she is, just offended. Now, her sister was also there, so I get her sister's perspective. I'm in trouble with my grandma, mm-hmm. But my sister and all the ladies thought it was the funniest thing ever. And it was a way for all of them to bond. The best part was Grandma, as she usually did, won, and she's like, what do I do with this thing? But how many stories about gaming are there?
I don't know.
That interacting with the family.
But you and I both smile when we talk about gaming with our families and growing up in that culture. It's still important, and I don't know. It's still around. It's still a big thing. It's actually a growing hobby, if you can believe it.
Well, I think that the computer and the phone are isolating, and people, particularly when we got isolated during COVID, like you were saying, puzzles suddenly were selling out. Mm-hmm. Games became bigger because people wanted a way to interact on a personal level. Playing online gaming, you never actually see the person you're playing with. You see their avatar. And so you lose something when you don't look somebody in the eye. when you don't see their face and see their reactions. And I think that's one of the things that's great about gaming is that it brings people together. It builds, whether it's a family, at least it's a community. It might be family, but also just builds a community.
If you deal me a hand of cards, and the second I pick them up, I still have that thrill of. Usually they're not great, But it's like, man, there's not much here to work with. But
yeah, but you need to put a smile on your face. So
you got to have a poker face.
Yeah.
But I always like to look at my cards, and even if it's junk, just say, how can I win with these? What are the possibilities of having a bad hand? That's where that thing. Hey, I was dealt a bad hand of cards. That's the
yes, but truly skilled people sometimes can pull it out with a terrible hand.
Yes, that's the magic. If you can do it, and the more you play, the better you get. And that's what I want to teach my students too. And they're pretty awesome. They beat me regularly now in a lot of different games.
So you've let the keys to the castle go.
I know
the keys to the games, and they took it and ran with it.
Huh? And they're fun. So I'm really excited about this group this year, particularly my students are really into the game we have. Hey, we are offering something else on Sunday. I didn't know this. My daughter told me that games trivia is back. Now we know about Jeopardy when we were little. On Sunday we're going to have an old school academic buzzer system where those folks that used to see on TV would ring a buzzer and answer the question, and the questions were way out there. These will be a lot easier. Did you know the highest rank that Abraham Lincoln held when he was in the military? A lot of people don't know he served.
I knew he served, but I don't know the answer to that.
But that's one of the type of questions that it was captain, by the way.
Okay.
President Lincoln was a captain. And we asked some pop culture too. They love Marvel and Disney questions. Okay, so we'll throw a few of those in, and for the veterans that are going to be there. So all you have to do is show up on Sunday. If you like trivia, we're hosting a trivia tournament with a trophy.
So that's part of the initial fee. You could participate in that. You don't have to come all 3 days.
You can come Sunday and have a blast too.
Okay. Well, I sure hope people show up for this because it sounds like it's a lot of fun. I might stop in. I don't know.
Oh, Eric, we'll give you the VIP treatment if you show up. That'd be awesome. You're just around the corner.
I'm just around the corner. I know I'm working Friday. Oh wait, I have a Japanese friend in. I'll be running around shopping.
There's lots of cool Japanese. There's a lot of Eastern Japanese style games too. There's, oh my gosh, he would have a blast.
He probably would have a bad blast, but he's about business, so we'll probably go thrift shopping and go to swap meets and go to other antique shops.
What's a good swap meet? What's that one south of Fresno? I mean, I always get stuck.
It's Selma.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one doesn't have very much old stuff, and I like old stuff. I like collectibles. So, for midweek, I'd say there's nothing better than in Turlock.
Really?
On a Tuesday. For the weekend, my new favorite swap meet, I've now been several times, is De Anza College. That is in Cupertino, so right near San Jose. Yeah. And that's a Saturday.
I've been on that. I've been there. I always hear people say, I went to this flea market, this thrift shop, and I got these games there. I'm like, it's so lucky because when I go there, I'm not that lucky. But the more you go, the more chances you're going to find some treasure.
I see a lot of games. I don't buy a whole lot of games. I buy a few, but I see a lot of games. They're a lot of fun.
The AmVet store is some place I always stop in, and every now and then I'll get something really nice off the toy shelf there.
So they're at Cedar and Shields.
Cedar and Shields, and all those. A lot of folks donate old clothes and things like that. They're always there. By the way, that's a plug for AmVet, but I know the veterans that work there, and they're always looking for donations.
We're down to about a minute because you got to go. So let's go ahead. Time, date.
Gamefest 2023. A lot of role playing, miniature, family, card games, dice games. Starts on Friday, the 7th of July. Runs through the 8th, Saturday.
And what time of day does it start?
Come at 9 o'clock on Saturday or Sunday, or come at noon on Friday.
Okay.
That is pretty much nonstop. We will break for sleep, but it's early the next day to start that.
Well, sounds like a fun event. I hope it's a successful event, and I appreciate you spending this time with me.
Eric, thanks for having me on, man.
Let's go ahead and go to break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. For those that are on social media, please please subscribe. It helps push this message forward. Today, you see, I was not quite as political, kind of my nature, but look, this is a good thing going on where I think people could go have a lot of fun going to this Gamefest in Old Town Clovis. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. In honor of the 4th of July, I realize we've eclipsed that, but we're still in the founding month. And for me, this is my actual Pride month. And by that, I mean pride in America. And I think the 4th, it encourages people to show their patriotism, to show their love of country. And I see those as great positives. There's a lot of things about this country that are amazing. There is opportunities. There's a reason why people from around the world are flocking here. Because not only do they want the economic opportunity, but they also want the opportunity to live their life in the way they choose. That's one of the things that's unique about our system, is that we have these God-given rights, not government-given rights. So if the rights come from God, how would you take those rights away, aside from at the point of a gun? Think about that. So they have these God-given rights when you grow up in authoritarian forms of government. You know, all those successful communist governments where there's all that freedom. You know, for my friends on the left, I suggest that you visit China and you hang out for a while, or you visit Russia and you hang out for a while, and you just see, how many choices do you have? If you had a dissenting opinion from what the government narrative was in Russia or in China, what would happen? For instance, Brittany Griner, the NBA player that took some pot into Russia, she had a few problems. And instead of there being a rule of law that truly protected her, they just went, we don't do that in our country. You're going to jail. She had no rights. So she couldn't choose to do what she wants. Now, I'm not advocating the use of pot, but did having some pot really justify being in jail for, I think, like 5 months? Well, in this country, it doesn't, but in other places, it does. You can't make choices in the same way. I have lots of friends that are first generation Americans, and they talk about how they, when they were growing up, because their dad was, say, a butcher or a farmer, you know what their options were? To grow up and be a farmer or a butcher, depending on what their parents did, what the people in their village did. Those were your only options. Here, not everybody can be president, but I believe that everybody can find their place, and they can find something great. They can live a productive life if they don't spend a bunch of time focusing on the fact that they're a victim. Unfortunately, the left loves to assign everybody a tribe and then find only those that are willing to go, yeah, I'm a victim. Well, when you have a victim mentality, how likely are you to be successful? The Constitution set forth the limiting of government and the empowerment of the people. I think that's really an important point. Yes, we had slavery. So did the world. We were one of the first nations to get rid of it. Great Britain and the whole Great Britain Empire was sooner. But we were willing to fight a civil war and actually shed a lot of blood. More people died during the Civil War than World War I and World War II combined. Does that make us a perfect nation? No. The principles set forth still needed to meet their potential. And so, yeah, people were flawed when they wrote the Constitution. They weren't perfect, but they set forth some principles that I think the potential is slowly coming forth. Are we perfect yet? No. Are we ever going to be perfect? No. Does the utopia given by government exist? I think you've been smoking something if you believe that that is a possibility. For those who believe we must tear down this country because of the sin of slavery, because they see it as a white supremacy culture. How is it that is Barack Obama white? Am I confused? Is he white? What about Oprah Winfrey? Is she white? They have more privilege than I will ever think of having in my entire lifetime. Now, that's an American success story. Even though I don't agree with their politics, that's an American success story. And if you want to spend all your time going, I'm a victim, where's that going to get you? I consider it a foolish desire to tear down the country. What country in the world doesn't have things that it's done where there's blood on its hands? Like, we're colonizers and we stole all the land from the Indians. Well, how many of those Indian tribes do you believe were there from their founding in exactly that spot, and nobody else was there and they didn't steal that land? Unfortunately, that's what humans did up till this more civilized period. You took the resources, whether that was water or good farmland or lots of game to hunt. That's what you did. We've since become more civilized, but if we're going to play this get even game forever, where is that going to lead? I guess somewhere in Africa where the first humans are said to have been, they get to own everything because they went out first, right? Where does that leave everybody else? Is that a reasonable way to resolve the problem? I think we need to realize that we're blessed here in this country, that we need to appreciate those blessings and realize that with all of this privilege comes responsibility. A whole bunch of the country doesn't even vote. Somewhere around 50% of the people are registered. And in a major election, somewhere around half of those people that are registered actually bother to vote. Now, that's a scary thought. That means 25% of the population is deciding who runs the wheels of government. 25%. I think we need to be more involved in that. I think that when you realize how many soldiers died because they appreciated the opportunity and the freedom and they loved this country, in honor of their memory, shouldn't you get off your butt and vote? I'm going to go ahead and play a video by somebody running for president, Vivek Ramaswamy, and he's on with Charlemagne the God. I cringe every time I say that. Charlemagne has a podcast. He is an African-American gentleman. He is advocating, because we're just getting a short clip, he is advocating that, this is a systemically racist country and that blacks are just oppressed. I want to point out that he's particularly rich, successful. So which blacks is he talking about? He seems to have found a way. There seems to be a way to be successful. And he's having a conversation with Vivek Ramaswamy. Let's go ahead and play the video.
I can absolutely blame white supremacy. 100%.
Really?
Yeah.
See, say more, and then I'll respond to that.
I mean, just look at the history of the country. Like, it's really just that simple for me. The country has never fulfilled its promises of freedom, liberty, and justice for all. It's always been freedom, liberty, and justice for some. And usually that some is white people.
So here's what I would say in response to that. That is obviously true that the nation has fallen short of our promise since our founding. But walk through some obvious facts about America. We're not founded on an ethnicity or a monarch or a food or even a religion. We're founded on a set of ideals that brought a group of people together in 1776, and we live by those ideals. At least we aspire to those ideals today. a nation that aspires to ideals that's not made up of gods, but made up of human beings, will always fall short of those ideals. So I think our worst hypocrisies as a country, and we have many of them, our worst hypocrisies are our best evidence that we have ideals at all. You take a look at other countries. Nobody ever calls the Chinese Communist Party a hypocrite, or China a hypocrite, or Iran a hypocrite. Why is that?
Because you'd be
Because
in
to be a
jail.
hypocrite, you at least had to have ideals in the first place.
But a lot of those
And so
ideas,
we're imperfect, but we are about the pursuit of a more perfect union, the pursuit of happiness. America's about the pursuit. And so I think
Are
that
we,
trashing
though?
ourselves, I think we are
Only reason I
actually.
say that is because we never were included in those ideals originally. Like,
Originally.
Yeah.
But never and not originally are two different things. Originally, that's true. Over 250 years of progress, if you had somebody who was in 1870 looking at the world we live in today, if you had somebody in 1960 who was looking at the world we live in today as it relates to race in America, we would be darn close to what they would have thought of as the promised land. So I think we have to recognize that America is about that pursuit. We're a lot further along than we were 250 years ago. And here's the other thing, too. We got to set our expectations. We will always fall short of our ideals. By definition, if there are human beings and not gods living in a nation that aspires to ideals, we are fallen. Man is fallen. That's what makes us who we are. But what also makes us different from animals is that we have ideals. So America's founded on our humanity, that we can believe and aspire to something that we will still fall short of. That's what makes this country beautiful. And that's why I'm in this. You ask me, why am I in this? I care about reviving pride in that nation, because if we get into the habit of just bashing that country, what are we bashing? We're bashing the last best hope that man has for aspiring to those ideals. Tell me who else has done better. I'll wait.
This is why I'm happy this man is in the presidential race. Do I think that it's going to be Trump on the Republican side? Absolutely. But he articulates what it is to be an American. By the way, Vivek Ramaswamy is Indian American. And yet he is a tremendously successful man. If we were just systemically racist, how is it that he could have found a way to be successful? I love the fact that he articulates American ideas. He defends liberty and the goodness of this nation. I love the fact that he is absolutely a warrior in that going on MSNBC, or in this case, he went on with Charlemagne the God podcast. He's going to the enemy and articulating the specialness, the preciousness of our American ideals. I love how he talked about the idea that we are essentially a country that has this ideal. The reason why you don't hear about that in China is because if you're inside the country and you dissent, you disappear. There's a whole group of people that have essentially been erased in China called the Uyghurs. They're an ethnic minority. They're in northwest China, so up towards Mongolia and Tibet. Thousands and thousands of people. And they're, in effect, and they're ethnically not Chinese. They're also religiously Muslim. And they're in prison work camps in China. Well, we don't have things like prison work camps here in the United States because we believe in freedom. China doesn't. China isn't our friend. Well, he might be Joe Biden's friend because 10% for the big guy. And that seems to be one of the places that's quite willing to give him his cut, as well as Ukraine, as well as Russia. So the big guy's doing well. But what about the average American person? So we have this divide in our country where people don't trust politicians for good reason, because the politicians are about lining their pockets. Now, that's not every politician, but they've set up a system where the bureaucratic state supports them, where there's crony capitalism or cronyism, because is it really capitalism that's doing this that provides the corruption? I don't believe it's capitalism. I believe it's cronyism. Cronyism in that they're cutting private deals that bypass the free market. bypass capitalism to give themselves unfair advantage by working with the government. So corporations are lobbying the government. They're providing, well, the corporations are providing the money. The government's providing the laws that give advantage to those companies. Like, for instance, the Frank Dodd Act. That was an act that regulated banking, but it made it almost impossible for a new company to enter banking because of all of the rules and laws. So you had this consolidation of banking into fewer and fewer hands. So you had less options. Well, the idea that there's less options because of government bureaucracy means that wasn't capitalism that did that. That was cronyism. Now, the Democrats passed that, and some Republicans voted for it, largely in response to a banking crisis. But you got to be really careful when the government comes in and says, well, you're too big to fail. Let us fix it for you. And then they pick a winner and a loser. When they did that with TARP and they bought or bailed out, say, Ford, and I believe Ford then was forced to give a huge portion of its company back to the union workers. Okay, but who paid for the money that was the bailout? The taxpayers. The government then chose a specific group. Rather than Ford paying it all back, they chose a specific group as part of the payment back to give that money to. So the Democrats chose the unions to pay it back to, rather than the taxpayers getting their money back. Not capitalism, crony capitalism. Cronyism is really a problem. I would recommend that you read a book by Carol Roth. Oh, what is the name of it? Death of Small Business? I don't think that's right. Anyway, great book. I will follow up on that later because unfortunately my memory is escaping. But it constantly talks about how small business during COVID was discriminated against. We didn't have equal rights. They chose big business. And why would they do that? Because big business is easy to control, and big business has enough resources to pay kickbacks. Now, that might not be directly kickback to the politician. It might be that, oh, well, your brother, say the politician's brother, needs a job, and I can provide him a job that's $500,000 a year here on my board if you can just pass this legislation. There's all kinds of games, cronyism that gets played. Now, that's not American, though I believe that happens. Capitalism was part of and is integral to why America is special. Now, it's a combination of representative Republican capitalism, but the capitalism part, it gets labeled as just greedy. And I don't think it's just greedy. I think that, is it greedy for you to want the best for your family? Is it greedy for you when you go to the store to want the best price at the highest quality? Those are capitalist choices. I don't think those are greedy. I think those are watching out for your own self-interest. Now, when you've got all of these people coming together, making all of these choices, and if a company is got a poor quality product or the price is too high, if there's competition, there will be an alternative, and people will pick what the best alternative is for their situation. So you have millions of people making choices and moving the economy along, as opposed to having the government come in and say, for instance, well, we can't have too many power companies, say electricity companies. We're going to regulate it. And then those companies, we're going to regulate the companies, and we're going to choose which ones get what area without any real competition. So they've eliminated the essential capitalism. And so why do you think we pay so much for power? Recently, though, it's because we shut down a pipeline. We've decided that we only want one type of power, green power. Yet we're completely ignoring some of the problems that are coming with that green power, like magically your electric vehicles, battery. There's a lot of gasoline that it takes to mine what you need for the battery, ship it across the world, so typically from Africa to China, then to ship the battery from China to the United States. Then we don't really have a good way to recycle that battery. We don't have the infrastructure to power that battery for your electric car. And because we don't have the infrastructure, I was talking to somebody that works on diesel engines, including the electric. So big rig trucks, not exclusively diesel. And California has mandated that a percentage of the fleets have to be electric big rig trucks. Well, they're not lasting. They're having all kinds of problems. And here's the thing that just made me laugh. In order to power those, because we don't have the infrastructure to power up a big rig electric truck, a semi-truck, how do you think they power them? Why, they've got diesel generators. So they burn diesel, they plug them into the diesel generator. Crazy. Getting back to some more positives about the world, or about our particular situation here. We've got divided government. Now that makes things often icky and slow and difficult. There's a reason why they did that. If you vest all the power in one man, or even one group of men, absolute power absolutely corrupts. And I think that the founding fathers knew that. And that's one of the things that makes us unique, in that you've got a Senate that is largely set up to represent all states, even because every state has two, even if that state only has, say, 1 million people. They still have 2 senators. So they still have a voice, so that rural is not forgotten, that it's not just a true democracy where it's mob rule, where the rights of the minorities are protected. And I don't necessarily mean minority in any particular sense. The way the left loves to divide us, I'm sure they could find new ways to divide us that I've never even thought of that they call minorities. The rights of everybody get protected, both the majority and the minority, by dividing that power, as opposed to the other branch of the House. It's kind of more populist. It is more directly connected to the number of people in each area, each state, and each state gets the number of congressmen in the House, depending on how much population they have. That's kind of cool. The president, rather than being directly elected, just popular vote, the reason they do that, and I'm going to give a very short reason because we're running out of time, is because they want the rural areas, the no population areas, to also be represented. There would be no reason for a candidate to ever campaign in anything but a large space. We're kind of out of time. I'm going to end with Whitney Houston. This is powerful. She spoke at the Super Bowl, or sang at the Super Bowl, and she sang the national anthem. And this woman has both power and skill. I hope you enjoy. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXCX, the best talk in town. I thank you, folks, and hope you have